All right, you've seen the introductory video on reloading. This is the second in that series. We're going to actually reload a 44 Magnum cartridge. Here's the press. We've got our dies all set up. We've got our powder measure on top. We've got our primer delivery mechanism. And we're ready to reload a once fired piece of brass. So let me point out a couple things. One, we've got our shell holder down here. The shell holder, the shell slides into that. Okay. The next thing I'm going to talk about quickly and not show many more times is we've got our press actuating arm here. This lever allows, as you can see, it is what's going to push the brass up into each die as we go. It also is going to cycle, as you can see, it's cycling the turret press. So each time we actuate it, we move from one die to the next. So I've got us lined up on the first die, which is the depriming die and sizing die. I'm going to put my once fired brass in the shell holder, and I'm going to cycle the press to press the brass up into this depriming and sizing die. So this takes some force. This is why a good sturdy workbench is necessary. So forcing that up in there, deprimed, brass is sized. Next thing, I'm now in position to put my primer in place. So the primer needs to go into this little gadget right here, which will allow the primer to be pressed up into the bottom of the brass. So I'm using this primer delivery mechanism here to drop a primer in there. So the primer now is in position. I'm going to cycle the arm on this press to bring the brass down. When I do that, you can see that the primer is going to get put into position underneath the brass. And then with a good firm push on the press arm, it's going to press the primer up into the brass. So now we've got a new primer in the brass. Okay, let's go over here now to our scale, my digital scale. Turn it on. And I'm going to put the brass on here with the new primer in it, and I'm going to tear that out so that the scale is showing 0 with the brass in place. Because now we're going to measure how much powder is dropped in. So let's take our brass back to our press, put it in position in the shell holder, and now our press is lined up on the belling and powder drop die. So we're all lined up here. I'm going to cycle the arm on the press to press the brass up into this die. Two things are going to happen. It's going to bell the case, and it's going to drop powder. Okay. We can see powder's been dropped into the case. It's also belled the top so that a bullet can be set in there. Take this back to our scale. And I'm measured that I've got 18.54 grains of powder. That's how much powder is in there, which is perfectly within my range of safety. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to take this back to the press, put it in the shell holder. I'm now lined up on the bullet seating die. I'm going to take my bullet. I'm going to set it up in here on top of the brass. Notice it just sets in there. It doesn't go in very far. Bell just enough to hold the bullet in place while it cycles up into the die, which is going to seat the bullet. You can see the bullet's now been seated. The next process, cycling the press. We've lined up our crimping die. Press that in, crimp it, And now we have a completed reloaded cartridge. We've got the bullet seated just right, crimped, powder was dropped in, we've got the primer in there. Let's come back over here and use our caliper to measure the overall length of our cartridge here. So I'm well within my tolerance for the overall length based upon my recipe. That completes the reloading of a 44 Magnum cartridge. Hope you enjoy the video.